My name is Jay Clark, and I work at the Center for Urban and Regional Affairs at the University of Minnesota. And before that, I was the director of the Jordan Area Community Council in North Minneapolis. I think that community engagement should be part of the name of CURA, because I think it describes so much of what they do. CURA's job is to connect university resources with community assets. And part of that, of CURA's work, is to facilitate community-based research. And what that means is research that the people at the university aren't necessarily coming up with. It's people out in the communities where they're saying, here's research that we need done in order for us to be able to work together to improve the neighborhood. And actually, I'll tell you who was the leading proponent of that was Chris Nelson, who many of you knew. And he had a deep influence on me. Somehow I knew this was a good idea, but he was the one who really articulated that you know, there's plenty of places where having university-led research is a great idea, but sometimes people in the neighborhood, they're at ground level and they're going to see things that people at the university or at City Hall aren't going to see. And sometimes they're going to be coming up with some great research that we would never think about. And hopefully I'm going to give you a couple of those today. I was talking to Tom Yoda, who is our resident, Tom Scott, who's our resident Yoda. Is he out here somewhere? And he said to me yesterday, I sort of was asking him about this, and he used a term which I just absolutely loved. He said, in some ways, CURA is an urban extension service. And our job is to help connect university resources to community needs. And for so many years, the U of M has done a great job in some of the more rural areas, and part of CURA's job is to help us do that with the urban areas also. At CURA, I run the Minnesota Center for Neighborhood Organizing. What we do, the most important job we do, is work with neighborhood volunteers and neighborhood organizations to help them determine what are the biggest problems in their neighborhood and do research to come up with achievable solutions that will really make a difference, and then get as many people as possible involved in getting those solutions implemented. Some of the key components to this are good listening, good research, getting lots of people involved. And I would say over the last few years, we work with everybody. And I've worked just on all sorts of issues, from traffic issues, the light rail transit, when Hiawatha went in and you had some of the problems with traffic not getting through fast enough, and we worked with Longfellow, just all sorts of problems just all over the place. But increasingly, what we've been working on are groups that often get lost in the decision-making process. Most of our support comes from the McKnight Foundation. A lot of our work is done with groups that have historically not had their voice heard, and this includes a lot of immigrant groups. I'm going to talk about the Hmong in a second, but we've done work with the Hmong and the Latinos and the Somali and the Oromo and the Liberians. We're even working with the Kurds. I found out like a year ago, which you probably didn't even know, there is actually a significant Kurdish population in the Fargo-Moorhead area. They gave me a call. They said, we want your help. And I said, I didn't know you existed. And we're working with them. And it looks like we're about to start working with the Nepalese, which I bet you didn't know we had many Nepalese either. And I just found that out. And so instead of us going to these communities with an agenda from the U, we usually start off with two questions. What do you like about your neighborhood, and what would make it better? Those are questions we're always asking, and that's something that we always encourage people in neighborhoods to be asking their neighbors also. And then our job is to ask more questions of them to figure out, well, if these are the things you want to improve in your neighborhood, what's the best way to move on that? So we work to have neighborhoods identify top problems, research solutions, cut them down to an achievable size so you're not just complaining, but that you're really getting something done. And by the way, for those people who work in both city and county government, I have found that when neighborhood groups can show that they've got the people actively involved in the problems and they come forth with a solution that really works and not just complaining, I have found most of the time people both in the county and still have a lot of people that you can do business with. And that's something I always encourage neighborhoods to do. And then find ways to involve the whole community in getting solutions implemented. Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of the Hmong Thai community in North Minneapolis. We listened to the community and helped them research, and you're going to hear about this. In 2004 and 2005, the last major Hmong refugee camp closed in Thailand. It was called Wak Tam Krabak. Some of you may remember this, that there was one final sort of tumultuous wave that came over. About 15,000 Hmong came over. About 5,000 of those ended up in Minnesota, and about 1,000 of those ended up in North Minneapolis. And they were still coming. It took them about 18 months, and there were still a few dribbling in after that. Well, in March of 2005, and this is how it happened. Sometimes I was drinking water. I was at a drinking fountain, and these two kids walked up, and they said hi, and I think they were practicing their English. And I turn and I say hi to them, and I asked them, what school do you go to? And they said Jordan Park, and I had worked in that neighborhood, and I was very interested that, and I didn't know really very much about the Hmong Thai at all. I knew about and I didn't even know at first that these were from that refugee camp. And I asked, well, how do you like your school? And first, there was a lot of babbling and noises I didn't understand. And finally, I got out, we don't. And after some more struggles and some pantomiming, and finally I found somebody who could speak both Hmong and English, I heard that they were getting hit. They were getting hit at the school and on the playground and on the buses and at the bus stop. And so in the next week, I went out to one of the Hmong social service agencies that I knew people at, and they had about 30 of these Hmong Thai kids. I found out eventually they were all at the same school, and we sat, and about four translators, and I sat down, and all these students had a lot of the same stories. And I think a lot of this happened because they were small and they were different, and they had trouble explaining to the teachers and the principals what was going on. And this was towards the end of the school year. I wanted very badly to try to get a meeting together of their parents. I think their parents didn't know either. And I'm going to tell you, I feel terrible. We didn't get it off. I tried hard to move, and we just ran out of time. But I was concerned that we might have more problems in the fall there, or we might have other problems. And I wanted very badly to be able to listen to what was going on. And to state the obvious, I don't speak Hmong, and these kids had all been here less than 6 months, so their English was limited. We were really if we were gonna make this work, it was gonna really be a test. One thing I knew about these kids is that they loved soccer. I picked that up like instantaneously. I realized that if we did like a monthly Hmong meeting to learn how to do community engagement and be civic, progressive people and learn how to be wonderful Americans, the total amount of people who would be showing up for those meetings would be 0, and I'd be left with a lot of cookies to eat. It didn't matter what kind of cookies. I don't think that was the key to this, but I thought, and I'd like to say it's an original idea. It's not. I saw it on the South Side with Latino families doing this, and I said, we're going to start a soccer team. And so at this point, and I'm going to tell you, a guy named Michael Yang, who some of you know, he was director of Hawthorne Area Community Council, and he called me and said, I want to talk to you about strategic planning. Boring, boring, boring. So we sat down for 2 hours and talked, boring, boring, boring. And then at the end of it, I said, I want to talk to you about these Hmong Thai kids who I've met. And I told him about the problems. And he says to me, he's saying to me, I'm not saying to him, he's saying to me, if I did this, everybody would be running for the hills. But he says, if I took my shirt off, you would see 2 tattoos on me, and they're both gang tattoos. And the reason I joined a gang when I was a kid was for protection, was that what you're describing now happened to me in Frogtown. And I joined gangs, and if we don't protect these kids, they'll find ways to protect themselves, and we're not going to like the results. And he said, I will help you get a soccer team going. And so we went and we talked to the teacher. She let us come in, and we signed up kids for the soccer team. And I'm going to tell you, just as an aside, that soccer team is still going strong. We had 5 teams this year, 6 years later, in the Farview, out of Farview Park. We've had hundreds of kids in a soccer They've won 11 championships in I'll let myself 1 minute that you might fight FUD. These kids were small, and they came literally out of nowhere. And their first game was against a team called Urban Stars, which is sort of the New York Yankees of the prepubescent soccer scene. And they come in there, and these little tiny kids that and I didn't know anything about Urban Stars at that point, but and you could see the Urban Stars players are thinking, ooh, hors d'oeuvre. And our kids... And our kids ran around them like gnats and won 6-1. And I was like, this is exciting. Who cares about neighborhood organizing? I just want to become a soccer coach. It got tougher later in the season. We had to play Urban Stars again. And this time there was none of this arrogant, we're going to clean your clock. They came in for business. We beat them again. So we had fun with that. But that was how we listened. And it wasn't so much I was running up and down the fields with a notepad, taking notes as they were trying to play. But we had a chance to talk with them, particularly going to and from the practices. And the English was limited, but I found Hmong Americans who could translate and stuff like that. So that's how we were able to listen to them. And I'll tell you, it did three things for us real quick. All right, the soccer team did three things for us. One, it allowed us to hear the problems. Two, it gave us a chance to connect with the parents because the parents kept seeing us week after week. If we just went up and said, please come to this meeting, it wouldn't work. But if they had actually seen us, when we said it was time for a meeting, they would do it. And three, the soccer team itself was a great vehicle, and we did some big meetings. You're going to see on those boards there, we actually held the kids from the soccer games and just brought them right into meetings with our council members and our mayor, and that really worked. So real quick, since I have spent too much time talking, an issue that came up, we were driving these kids home. I saw a house. There were 20 to 30 kids, about 16 to 22. It was pretty clear they were not Hmong, and this building I knew was all Hmong Thai. And I said, and after about the third or fourth time of seeing this, I said, what's going on? And they said, they've taken over the building. And first we tried calling 911. That didn't work. I was trying to practice. It didn't work. I finally said, do you want to meet a Hmong police officer? They said yes. We tried repeatedly to meet with a Hmong police officer. Never got one. I turned to the soccer players and I said, do you think we need a Hmong speaking police officer in North Minneapolis? And they said yes. And I'm going to just give a quick rundown. So they mounted a campaign. It took 3 years, but we won it. And we had hundreds of these Hmong, particularly the new arrival Hmong Thai, who were involved with this. We had major meetings with the mayor, major meetings with the council members. We had a huge postcard campaign where they collected 1,000 postcards out of the schools and then dropped them in the mayor's lap. And one of the things that they did was they had smaller meetings with these council members to tell them their experiences as new refugees, and particularly the difficulties in talking with English-speaking police officers. So here was a situation of not the government giving information to the people in the community, but the community was giving important information to people in the government. I think we have 1 or 2 government elected officials who could tell you that is true. And it took a 3-year campaign, but we got it, and we just got and we just had a meeting with Mayor Ryback a month ago, and a whole bunch of soccer players. You can see them there, and they got it. Okay. And then the second issue that we worked on real quick was a bunch of these kids, there's twists and turns, and I just don't have enough time to go through everything. A bunch of them ended up going to Hopkins. The family said they wanted their kids to learn English as fast as possible. And there's a program called Choice is Yours that they use to get out to Hopkins, and they are delighted out there, but it's fragile. And last summer, the money was getting cut right and left. And I said to the kids, do you want to go to the Capitol and tell your elected officials why you like this program? And they said yes. The day before they got there, the Education Committee of the Senate had already voted to cut the money. So it wasn't simply convincing them it's the right thing. We had to get them to reverse it. And they went out there, and these kids went to the Democrats, they went to the Republicans, and they and these are people whose first language is not English. They're still learning English, and they got the Senate to reverse their vote and support it, and they've got they still have it, and I think that a couple of things here. One is, I would say when you're talking about community engagement, a lot of it's got to go bottom up. Government is going, and the university is going to learn a lot of stuff. Two is, it gives great chances for research. When we went after that Hmong police issue, we had one research project finding out where the Hmong police officers were. The map is up there. It was absolutely key to us winning. Then the police were saying that the union contract forbid them putting Hmong police officers in North Minneapolis. We had a second research project from William Mitchell College of Law that showed that is not true. You can do it. And then we had a third research project where we looked at other cities that were placing bilingual officers in neighborhoods where they could help bridge it. And that, I'm not sure how much we got the police to buy in, but we got the elected officials to buy in and do that. And so we came up with some great research projects. And we had a really great project. So we had this brand new immigrant group going to this very college-oriented, sort of high-power suburban school district, and it seemed overall to be really working remarkably well. And we turned to Heidi and we said, we think something special is going on here, something that has relevance beyond just the kids that are involved. And she said, I want to do this. And she spent like 2 years doing a research project, which is, I think it's going to be published shortly. Am I correct on that? It's not quite out yet. And that's a research project that she might never have known about what was going on in Hopkins, and she probably would not have had access to those families had we not been working bottom up. So in conclusion, I would say it's really important when you're talking about community engagement to really make sure a chunk of that is going bottom up. I think that the university and city and county governments can really benefit from having some of it go up. You're always, if you ask those two simple questions, what do you like about your neighborhood? What will make it better? I can guarantee you're going to be hearing stuff you weren't expecting, and oftentimes it's stuff that you weren't expecting that ends up being the key to making it a better place to live.